Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Fiber Broadband Association's Five for Breakfast. We're now in our 45th episode of 2024. Before we kick off, I'd like to thank Wesco, the platinum sponsor of Five for Breakfast. The NTI BEAD Broadband Infrastructure Funding Program continues to remain on track with the application window closing for Montana tomorrow. We're up to 9 states in this phase of the process. As a reminder, NTI has approved the initial proposals for 55 of the 56 states and territories. And we're also less than a week away from the election. There's been a lot of anticipation, especially as the BEAD program and affordable broadband have been mentioned in many races, most prominently in the presidential election. FBI remains committed to working with legislators on a bipartisan basis to ensure and realize the bipartisan infrastructure law's intent to connect all Americans to high-speed, reliable broadband is protected. We were in Nashville last week as we were working on planning for the Fiber Connect 2025 conference that will be held in Nashville June 1st to 4th. And while if you thought Fiber Connect could not have been any better this year, we have pulled out all the stops for next June. So it's going to be epic in every way. I'm incredibly excited. Can't wait for June. We also have a very exciting lineup of regional Fiber Connect workshops planned for the next year, which will include San Antonio, Philly, Anchorage, Toronto, Spokane, Scottsdale, and Kansas City. And we'll be announcing the dates for these regionals soon as we finalize contract with all the hotel conference centers. That said, we still have plenty of work for the remainder of this year, as the Fiber Broadband Association's next Fiber Connect workshop will be held in Albuquerque, New Mexico next week on November 7th. So we look forward to seeing you guys there. We'll be talking about all kinds of great things, including tribal broadband. And then we'll wrap up the year with our premier member meeting in the Keys in Florida on December 9th and 10th. That brings us to today's Five for Breakfast. Our guests are John Sullivan, the Chief Revenue Officer for DxTEL Fiber Homes, Matt Fowler, the Executive Director for Doorify MLS, and Amanda Scherer from Adtran, who will be discussing the power and value of fiber in the home. Before I formally introduce today's guests, I'd like to introduce David Norris from our team, who's going to walk us through some housekeeping items.
Thank you very much, Gary, and thank you to everyone who's joining us today. Before I go over a few logistics, we'd like to once again thank our platinum sponsor, Fiber for Breakfast, Wesco. Please keep in mind all participants are in listen-only mode. To ask a question, please type it into the question box located in the control panel on the side of your screen. We will host a Q&A session with our panelists at the end of today's session. This presentation is being recorded and will be available on the FBA website within 24 to 48 hours. And you can find that recording in the Events tab under the Fiber for Breakfast drop-down option. Finally, at the conclusion of today's presentation, you'll be prompted to complete a brief feedback survey. Please take a minute to do so. We really appreciate the input. And with that, I will pass things back over to Gary to once again introduce our panelists and get us started. Gary?
Thanks, David. Good morning. I'm Gary Bolton, the President and CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association. Last week on Fiber for Breakfast, our guest was Ryan Kudera from Finley Engineering, who discussed the 4 steps to successfully navigating complex permitting processes. As a former state broadband director, Ryan provided his insights on how to break down a very complex permitting process into 4 easy-to-follow steps for success. If you missed last week's session, you can go to the Fiber Broadband Association's website to watch the replay. Today on Five for Breakfast, our guests are John Sullivan, the Chief Revenue Officer at DxTEL Fiber Home, Matt Fowler, the Executive Director at Doorify MLS, and Amanda Scherer at Adtran, who will be discussing the power and value of fiber in the home. John Sullivan is the Chief Revenue Officer at DxTEL Fiber Homes, and they help provide broadband providers with insights, strategy, and materials and tools to effectively and efficiently communicate the advantages of fiber internet, all for the growth of rural communities, local providers, and rural America. DxTEL offers plug-and-play marketing solutions like Fiber Homes, Fiber Gaming Network, and the Harper Broadband Marketing Library, as well as hands-on integration. John is passionate about connectivity and future tech, including 5G, smart cities, autonomous vehicles. And he has a knack for commercializing tech and services to solve new and old problems. Matt Fowler is a technology executive based near Raleigh, and his first real estate job was as a commercial appraiser in '93, when Matt and a business partner also developed one of the first automated valuation models, AVMs. The same group then produced one of the first internet-based MLS in the country and grew it internationally, fast enough to be recognized by Inc. magazine as one of the 500 fastest growing private held companies in the U.S. twice in 2004 and 2005. In 2018, Matt sold Solid Earth to competitor FBS, where he served as vice president for 3 years. In 2020, Matt left FBS for Tribuzz, another property technology company where he was a director. And a year later, Matt was recruited to be the first independent director of the Triangle MLS, now Doorify MLS, the 33rd largest MLS in the U.S. and the 8th largest in the South Atlantic region. In 2024, Matt was named the MLS Reinvented Award winner by Iman News. Amanda's role as Adtran's Director of Solution Marketing involves understanding end-user behavior, analyzing market trends, and leveraging the latest technology. Before joining the company, she worked at an agency in the tech sector. Amanda's also served as the marketing director for an IoT startup backed by LG Electronics. So welcome, John, Matt, and Amanda. And for our audience, please type in your questions as we go, and we'll work those into discussion. With that, I think Amanda's kicking things off.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you so much, Gary. Thanks everyone for joining. We are very excited to talk through these topics today. I'm going to kick us off going through just some trends, some information, really just setting the stage for how exciting what Matt and John have, and really why do we care? Why does it matter to us in the industry? So starting out on our first slide, we're going to look a little bit at some of our consumer trends. Everything that we do on the vendor side, on the service provider side, is really driven by our end subscribers. We ourselves are subscribers to our service providers. So we're looking at how these trends are growing. I think generally we know trends are growing. We generally know people are consuming more. But sometimes seeing it placed like this really emphasizes just how much subscribers year over year, quarter over quarter, are enhancing what they're doing in the home. The adoption per home is increasing. Telehealth has never really backed off since COVID. It's only growing further and faster. E-commerce is becoming massive. And really think about that in terms of not just you have subscribers who are purchasing in the home, but now you have subscribers who have their business in the home, starting their own e-commerce businesses, and they're generating revenue that way for themselves. And then the in-home devices are skyrocketing from just having a handful of collected devices to up to 22, growing from there. All of those devices having really kind of extreme needs to run on the network, and then simultaneously you've got kids streaming at the same time that mom and dad are working, and the bandwidth demands there are pretty staggering. So when we look at that consumption, we've got a few reports here. A couple of these are from OpenVault. If you don't follow along to their reports, I definitely would recommend it. They put out great information. So our next slide has kind of the first that I want to show. Year over year, we see that massive jump from 2019 to 2020. And then we also see that orange residential line is not slowing down. It is continuing to increase. And so what that's really speaking to is that residential in-home consumption. This is all part of our day-to-day. This is all part of our daily lives for our subscribers. And so when they're starting to make those home decisions, when they're planning for their future, they have to consider what their connection and their lifestyle is going to be like, because as you can see with these trends and speed tiers, they need that reliable connection. On our next slide, we look at this a little bit further on the speed tiers and really where they're consuming. And I want to call out that this is a quarter over quarter growth in this trend, that little teal dot at the top that's growing rapidly, those are subscribers choosing those gig or higher packages. And quarter over quarter, that's growing massively. So that speaks to the need to that fiber going into the home. It has to be to our subscribers. They need those higher tier packages. They're choosing to pay for them, and they're choosing to prioritize having those types of services. And that's growing so rapidly for us that we have to be ready to respond to that and find a way to communicate it. We talk a lot at Adtran about the infrastructure, the size, what we have to do to get the hardware to subscribe to these types of trends. And today, what John and Matt are going to highlight is the next step beyond that. How do we talk to subscribers? So on the next slide, we see just one more trend graph that I have for us. And that's the introduction of these power users. So one of the big trends that we are noticing, that just telling subscribers you have reliable fiber internet is not the same when we're looking at groups like power users who are consuming quite a lot of technology and inherently are a bit more educated. This is not a group that you can just flash a marketing message in front of with no substance and a lot of frill and assume they're going to be okay with it. These are groups that understand the technology, they understand what they're purchasing, why they're choosing a service provider for what they're offering. So getting in front of these types of subscribers from the get-go at that real estate when they're looking for a home is so valuable because they are those massive power users. And so finally, before I turn over to these guys to talk about how we actually get into front of those customers, a couple areas on the next slide where they're consuming when we're thinking about how do we support them best. Next slide, David. We've got these folks that are across all of the different consumption areas. We have to consider how we're supporting their cloud platforms, their smart appliances, all through the home, how they're expanding to those exterior kitchens, how they're entertaining their family, their friends. And all of these areas are things that they're going to start to consider at that real estate listing. These are part of their lifestyle choices. They're choosing based on their family, what size home they need, what they like to do in their home, where they want to put the TV up in their house. And all of those lifestyle choices are backed and kind of foundationally reliant on some of this internet connection. So it makes sense that logically, when we're looking at ways of reaching out to these subscribers and we're looking for ways to reach them quicker and become their choice, we start at that real estate listing. We start when they're making the rest of their family choices for their home. And we say, hey, we know that it's important to you that you have these lifestyle choices. Here's your service provider that's going to be able to provide that foundational fiber that you need to choose your family home. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt, and he's going to get into really talking about how we start to reach those subscribers through the real estate side.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. I think looking at the poll that everybody answered when they came in saw an indication that it's not generally known that you can do this, that you can market providers through the multiple listing service or through listings. So I'm going to take just a second from Amanda's really data-driven presentation there. That's great. I took a couple of screenshots to use in my marketing, but we are a multiple listing service, and I'll just explain what that is for a second. When I say MLS, and we can go to the next slide, most people think Major League Soccer, but it's multiple listing service, and it's been around for decades. There are about 550 of them in the US. As my intro mentioned, we're the 33rd largest in the US, the 8th largest in the Mid-Atlantic with about 15,000 subscribers based in the Raleigh-Durham area. We cover 16 counties. We're one of 11 MLS systems like ours in just North Carolina. So there's a lot of little buckets across the country. A company called T360 publishes an almanac. So we're, to put us in context, a little bigger than Cleveland and a little smaller than San Diego in terms of the number of realtors that operate in our market. And we benchmark ourselves against, the organizations kind of around us. Just to give you an idea of what we do, there were about 80,000 home sales on our system last year, about 10,000 for sale at any given time. Add it all up, and that's between $15 and $20 billion of sales in that area, just that 16 county area a year. So when those 80,000 properties come through the system, what we do, and we can go to the next one, is we collect information from the broker, and then we put that information into our syndication engine. So we receive the information, and then we add things to it. And we syndicate or distribute that information back across to our 15,000 realtor members in the area so they can see if they have a buyer for that property. And then we also send it out to dozens and literally of apps and thousands of websites. Zillow.com gets their data from us originally. They're broker members of our system, as is Homes.com and Realtor.com and all the .coms you can think of originate with us, which gives us an opportunity, just to wrap up a few slides on the next one. It gives us an opportunity when they fill out the input form. This is an old school input form where they just, tell us the size of the house, the beds, the baths, etc. They don't typically know what broadband availability is at that property. It can be difficult for them to find that out. We also have other data sources that we that we connect with, like Real Reports, Green Building Registry, CRS, and Fiber Homes gives us a data element that we pull in from John's company, and we incorporate in the compilation that is both searchable by the realtors inside the system in case they've got someone relocating, like Amanda said, and they actually say, hey, my lifestyle requires broadband. I work from home, and we need that kind of utility in very much the same way that somebody would say, I need wide hallways and bathrooms if they're wheelchair bound. So that's an existing set of things that we let you search by because it's important to lifestyle. Broadband is just another one. About 20% of all the home searches that happen on our platform occur by buyers moving in from New York State. So just New York State is 1 in 5. And we believe that those people are moving to Research Triangle in our area for work, and they need broadband at home. So we're going out and finding authoritative sources for broadband availability, making it part of the compilation so that we can ultimately put it in on Zillow and every other website to allow a fiber yes no sort of search option. So that's a great way to get that straight into the consumer when they're first looking at those houses, because I know they consider broadband access when they consider where they want to live. I think that's probably my setup for Fiber Homes. And John?
Great, thank you so much. And you can just go right to the next slide, David. I will be brief, which is really just to tell you what Fiber Homes is. So Fiber Homes is a platform that connects fiber broadband providers with the real estate industry. What we do is we certify fiber availability at the address level, and then we provide that information to agents both through the MLS integrations as well as an online portal. And sort of as Matt said, the MLS is the source for real estate listings. And since they all flow through there, what we are responsible for doing is putting data from our pro partner ISPs in the right place at the right time, sort of turning that into valuable information for both the real estate agents and those who are looking to purchase and sell their homes. Just to give you an idea of just some data points, right now we have a total of around 7 million certified addresses as a part of Fiber Homes that we are feeding directly into the MLSs, currently getting around 2 million searches per month for folks looking specifically for fiber, and currently have just over 5,000 registered real estate agents using the platform. And as Matt mentioned, there's around 550 MLS services around the country. Currently, we're in around 130 of those MLSs. So we're quickly becoming the leading data source. There's a lot of places that folks can look for internet availability. And the big thing that Fiber Homes is doing is helping make that conversation more democratized by lifting up a lot of the smaller providers, anywhere from the tier 2 to the tier 4, and actually showing home buyers that this is an available option, so they don't just default to a national incumbent because that's what they know. So that's Fiber Homes. And if you go to the next slide, and if you're interested in learning more, you can always just book something with me to learn more.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. So let's just start with, I guess we build this as, how fiber is really driving the home market. So what is the home values? Are you seeing? How are they increasing when they offer fiber versus, say, cable or something else?
Well, Gary, I hate to toot the FBA horn, and you didn't pay me to do this, but honestly, we're using that around that 4.9% that RVA study that you all commissioned. And honestly, a lot of it is because it's sort of a more conservative number with based on some studies that have been done. It's a pretty solid number. It's the number that we have been communicating with the real estate agents that we use, and we point them to that study. It's the authoritative study in the industry, I would say.
Yeah, I wish I had some data on that, John. We're doing some regression analysis with the new AI project right now. Um, and the only, we haven't seen any or found any direct value evidence yet, but we are seeing impact on marketing time, which is, time is money. And that's just as important, really, if the properties are selling more quickly when they're located in the broadband coverage. I think it has a similar effect as like extensive landscaping and other amenities at the house that don't necessarily accrete to value directly, but they can reduce your marketing time by a third or half, which is very valuable. We may find in our data set, we have about 2 million home sales that we're studying. Of course, very little of that has any broadband data in it. So we're in the process of starting to look at that data, and hopefully we can give you some more in a future podcast.
Yeah, the data that John's referencing. So Mike Render, our top researcher, he'll be on next week to talk about his latest survey. So that comes from the consumer survey, and so he just finished the 2024 one. So we'll see what that's. But what was really interesting is the previous survey had home values increasing by 3.4%, and then last year it went up to 4.9. So it's getting more and more important, as far as home values. And so we'll see if that increases. He also showed that rent is 12.8% higher when you have fiber, and then condo increases the condo value by 3.2%. So we'll be looking forward to that data. I know friends who bought houses and didn't ask were very disappointed when they move in and they can't get fiber, and because it really impacts people's ability to work from home and to do, just the critical things you need to do. Amanda, you have all the data. What are you seeing as far as the requests for fiber to the home in the real estate market?
Yeah, the thing. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I thought you said Matt. Go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, I definitely think that we're seeing the increase in trends. I think one of the most significant things I have heard in the industry recently is the builders themselves, as they build new developments. That's become a crucial step in their building process. They want to start working with service providers early, even bringing it into the HOA. So having those relationships with the builders in an area so that the homes just start optimized, they have the right types of utility closets, the right types of locations. That's been a significant trend that we have seen in the last year or so.
Matt, you said you had something to add?
Yeah, the data that we have, Gary, is really about consumer demand. And we send data to about 1,000 websites, and we get requests from those web developers all the time for new things they want to add for consumers to search by. And broadband availability is definitely up there. I think millennial buyers are interested in the cost of ownership, and they're interested in how green the house is, if it has a HERS certification or other energy measures, and broadband fits right in with the kind of utilities that they're expecting in a house. If they expect to have to pay for the cost to add fiber if they don't have it when it becomes available. So if it's actually on the property at the parcel level, as John was saying, that's a significant amenity to that generation.
Globally, we're seeing a big push to actually fiber to the room. So, and as like Asia Pac, which already has high penetration of fiber to the home, Europe that's getting a very high penetration. People are finding that they can't get the bandwidth to their devices that the Wi-Fi 6 and so forth is having a hard time keeping up with the tens of gigabits that people are getting to their home. John, what are you seeing?
Well, as someone with 6 kids and around 114 devices on my network, I think I might be a little bit of an outlier. But absolutely, the increase in and internet service providers in a lot of instances are starting to provide some of these devices in the form of home security, things that are taking a higher bandwidth. It's becoming much more of a consideration. And I think what we've seen, I think a lot of it emphasized about all these federal programs is consumers are starting to become smart enough to understand gig is good, right? I mean, they understand they need the higher bandwidth, even if they don't fully understand how it works, which honestly is a big step for the industry, and I think speaks to what Amanda showed earlier of the quarter-over-quarter growth.
Now, what about, does the consumer value a buried drop versus aerial to their home? Is that a big deal?
I can answer that coming from the provider side, which is really that my history is in the provider side, so it's probably the best way to speak to it. Most consumers aren't asking when they're purchasing a home. It's not something they're even considering. Where they start to care is if it's an existing property and you're a first-time provider and you want to bring it to their house aerially, typically they're going to want you to bring it. Underground, you do have some outliers, however, folks who just have those dog fences, we've all been there, and they just do not want you to put that drop in their yard. So I'd say it's case by case.
I think some considerations that subscribers have on that would be if they were in a heavy storm area, a tornado valley, a hurricane location. I think that's where we see it start becoming a consideration, because they want to think forward of, if a storm rolled through here, what would be the impact to my home? What would I be off the grid? Those types of considerations.
Yeah, and maybe the best way to add to that is to say that it is valuable to educate the consumer on why buried versus aerial can have strength. So, I mean, if you're a provider who's doing everything buried, I imagine you're already touting the benefits of that to your customers, but that they can definitely be convinced about how important and that can be leveraged to make a decision from one provider to another.
Yeah, I'm on Tybee Island, and we only have Comcast service currently, but Live Oak Fiber is going to be putting fiber to every home on the island, and they will do it buried. And what they had mentioned to the town council is that regardless of whether anybody subscribes to Live Oak Fiber or not, their broadband will be cut in half, because every community they've gone to, they're able to offer gigabit plus for a very, half the price of what the existing provider is providing. I suspect they'll get, 70% take rate or something pretty high on the island. So, Matt, I wanted to go back to you, and you were talking about time on market, which seems to be, if you're a real estate agent and a home seller, would be probably the most important metric. Well, other than the price you get, but I assume that time on the market and price are highly correlated.
Yeah, they really are. And well, the time value of money thing, if it takes you 3 more months to sell your house, it's literally worth less, right, than it would have been if you'd gotten paid up front. But there are pockets. We're in 16 counties, and of course that's how 100 municipalities, and there are pockets, and we're still doing the research to find the correlations. But the new developments that advertise benefits or amenities or utilities that are attractive to the average home buyer, which is 33 to 37 years old today, is going to be the whether it has LED lighting, whether it has solar, whether it has smart home features, whether it has an EV station, and fiber fits right in there. And if you have communities that have all of those amenities, we have a third of the number of days on market as a property who's just sitting in an older subdivision, in an older property that it doesn't have all of those things. Somebody who's maybe getting out of college and getting into their first home, having lived in a modern apartment situation, they don't want to go back. So I think that definitely drives value and marketing time.
Well, I don't think you have any choice. We just moved in here full time this summer, and our refrigerator wants to talk to our Wi-Fi, the thermostat, the pool heater, everything that we have is connected to the internet. And then, with so even if you don't want to be a smart home, you end up being a smart home. All our lights are connected to the internet. So it becomes a necessity, I think, here going forward. Well, listen, I really appreciate you guys sharing your insights on the value that fiber drives to home values, and I will hear more about that next week as we have Mike Render, our top researcher from RVA Market Research, and he just finished up his 2024 consumer survey, so we'll know his latest data on the values of rent and home values and so forth with fiber. Seems like it keeps going up and up. No surprise there. So thank you guys very much, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys next week when we're with Mike. And
Thank
I
you
hope
so
you
much.
guys
Enjoyed
all
it.
get
Thanks,
out and
Gary.
vote.